Si comes tienes que lavar tu plato, Firulais. Anda, enjuágalo bien. No me gruñas. A ver, con la esponja eso. Y enjuaga bien que luego deja todo jabonoso. Eso así, muy bien, aunque de malas.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap. We're going to kick it off with the WBC Super Lightweight title fight between Sandy Ryan, the former champion, now current, and Karla Zamora, the game challenger, in a fight that worked out exactly as I expected. Karla, very persistent, applying pressure, barreling forward, trying her best to crowd Sandy Ryan as Sandy beats those feet, gets on her toes, moves around, and walks Karla into punches, though not without taking punches, as Karla had several highlights in the fight. It wasn't one way. It was not lopsided. Said in the build-up that Karla Zamora is best described as a dangerous, albeit beatable fighter, because she has been beat before, so if you're not careful, if you look past her, you could be in trouble. For a moment there in the fourth round, it looked like Sandy Ryan was in trouble as Karla Zamora unloaded a combination, and somewhere in there, a body shot got in that made Sandy wince. Though still doing a mostly good job of handling the pressure from Karla Zamora, moving and punching and countering, engaging when she needed to and moving when she needed to. That's the earmark of the boxer-puncher. Alternating between the two as opposed to the more straightforward approach of the pressure fighter. It's all in the name. They apply pressure. The outcome of the fight was expected. I would not call it controversial, though I would say, depending on the location of a fight like this, if it happened the exact same way, there's an argument that Karla could have won it on activity.
Got a draw.
But that wasn't my prediction. That wasn't what I forecasted. I anticipated Sandy would win a points decision, and so she did, in effect becoming a two-weight world champion, having held the WBO title at 147, now the WBC at 140. And I don't expect her to take a hardline stance.
I don't expect her to drop her belt in protest for 3-minute rounds like Amanda Serrano or Alicia Baumgartner, Chantel Cameron, who used that as an excuse to get out of a fight with her. The argument that more minutes in a round and more rounds in a fight will result in more knockouts is a flawed one, because that's not what we've been seeing, as opposed to the more fast, frenetic-paced 2-minute rounds that result in more action, I think lend themselves more to the marketability of women's boxing.
Less quiet moments, less feel-out rounds, and more action, which is what people pay to see.
If we can stop pretending that boxing is for the wine and cheese crowd as opposed to what some hipsters would have you believe, focusing mostly on the nuances and technical aspects of boxing, to the vulgars and the casual observer, they just want to see two people beat each other up. And that's what draws people to combat sports.
You don't need to overthink it. I think yesterday's fight was a great advertisement for women's boxing and how entertaining it can be when done right. Congratulations to Sandy Ryan. The prediction stuck. I said that she would win a points decision, and so she has.
Over to the undercard of Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios, where seasoned veteran Nair Albright took on Frank Martin in what was an entertaining fight. For me, more entertaining than the main event.
Nair Albright, who upset Kelvin Davis, looked well on his way to upsetting Frank Martin. Noticeably taller, noticeably longer than Frank Martin, who moved up from 135, now campaigning at 140, trying for big punches and missing by a mile.
Getting outboxed.
For me, he was Nair Albright, landing punches, landing counters with some regularity, at the same time staying out of the way of Frank Martin's, weaving under hooks, stepping out of the range, out of the way of punches, pivoting.
He was outboxing him. When you hear people say that, that's what they mean, or that's what they should mean, though oddly enough, during the live broadcast via Fan Zone, where the fans can score the fight live, in their opinion, they had Frank Martin well ahead, and I don't know why.
You know that those were probably Gervonta Davis fans, hyping up Frank Martin to, in effect, hype up Gervonta Davis for having beaten him.
That's what I think that was.
For me, Frank Martin was getting thoroughly outboxed. He was losing this fight. That's not to say that it was lopsided. He had some moments of success, some pockets, but Nair Albright was consistently the better boxer. Movement, straight punches from the outside getting in, counters.
Made Frank Martin look even more beatable than I thought he was at the end of it. The judges scored it a draw.
I think Nair Albright put forward a solid effort. I think Nair was lucky to walk away with that draw because a fighter like Nair that doesn't have a major promotional outfit behind him, doesn't generate much money, it's easy to rob fighters like this. It's easy to add another loss to their record, so I think it's good. It's actually good that he was able to walk away with a draw instead of a loss. Frank.
Entertaining, albeit flawed, was very fortunate to walk away with that draw. Moving forward, because he's at 140, I wouldn't mind seeing Frank Martin versus Gary Antoine Russell, Frank Martin versus Dalton Smith.
Subriel Matias. The 140-pound division, in my opinion, is a deeper and more talent-rich division than the welterweight division. There are any number of good fights you can make there if you mix and match the names. I'm going to assume that Frank at some point wants to fight for a title since he never really won one at 135 at 140.
There's only so many guys you can win a title from.
But this was actually a very entertaining fight. In my opinion, it was more entertaining than the main event, and so was Gary Antoine Russell versus Andy Hiraoka. This fight didn't get off to the start that I thought it would. Andy Hiraoka did a lot more moving and a lot more boxing, trying his best to control the distance at which the fight was being fought, whereas Gary Antoine Russell was the busier, more aggressive fighter. You could argue this was a tale of two halves, where Gary won most of the rounds at the start,
Outworking Andy.
because at the start, Andy was really just moving around in the first half of the fight. And in the second, Andy Hiraoka is known as a banger. He's known as a big puncher. And in the second half of the fight, when he finally stopped moving around and started stepping into his punches, at around round 6,
He starts to outgun Gary Antoine Russell. He starts beating him at his own game. The noticeably taller, longer fighter, physically imposing, finally stepping into his shots and sitting on them. You see, he's doing damage to Gary. And it's unfortunate that he didn't start off the fight that way, because if he had, based on how much damage he was accumulating in the second half, he probably could have stopped Gary.
he starts going after Gary, stepping into his shots, unloading combinations, body shots, which were doing noticeable damage. Punch for punch, it looked like Andy Hiraoka was the bigger puncher of the two. Though while targeting Gary Antoine Russell's body, there were a couple of shots that were sailing kind of low. One in particular that looks to have hit Gary right in the family jewels.
They deducted Andy Hiraoka a point for that punch, so that really didn't help his plight.
Though on sight, the fight is a tale of two halves, where Gary Antoine Russell dominated the first half and Andy Hiraoka dominated the second, coming very close to stopping Gary. It's the most hurt I've ever seen Gary Antoine Russell. In spite of everything, I think Gary was very lucky to walk away with a decision, because the rounds that Gary won were not as emphatic as the rounds that Andy won. Gary won rounds off of activity, just coming forward and throwing punches, but he didn't actually hurt Andy Hiraoka.
He didn't hurt him.
But Andy did hurt him, and you could see that in the back end of the fight. I only hope that Turki El Sheikh, having seen Andy Hiraoka in action for the first time, he will decide to use him again on his Ring Magazine and Riyadh season cards. As far as Gary, I expected better. I expected a lot better from Gary. I picked him to win, and in that regard, the prediction stuck. He got a decision, but I was expecting him to knock out Andy because it had been over a year since Andy's last fight, the late arrival that he didn't get to the United States until the week of due to visa issues.
So he didn't get a chance to acclimate to the different time zones.
None of which seemed to bother Andy or hamper his performance. If anything, Gary's the one that underwhelmed. Gary's the one who looked kind of flat. Overall, this was an entertaining fight to watch. For me, more entertaining than the main event, but I did not walk away impressed with Gary Antoine Russell, and I want to see more of Andy Hiraoka. Match him against anybody, and it makes for an entertaining fight. What should happen next for Gary?
Unification matches, one would think. Go after Dalton Smith.
Go after Richardson Hitchens. Go after Shakur Stevenson if either of them decide to stay at 140. In the main event, we saw Brian Garcia versus then champion Mario Barrios.
Boring.
Aside from the early knockdown about 30 seconds into the first round, where it looked a lot like Ryan was going to go home early, aside from that, not a lot happened in this fight. Ryan was basically lending at will, still unable to put away his man in a monotonous fight.
Why?
Because Ryan is not a good fighter. Ryan is not a good boxer. What he is a good physical specimen. That he's got height, he's got length, strength. He's fast.
But he's not a good boxer. His X's and O's.
They were only slightly better than what you saw from Mario Barrios, who was noticeably taller, albeit noticeably slower. Getting beaten to the punch consistently by Brian Garcia, who did little more than try for the straight 1-2 on repeat. He was spamming that,
throwing the occasional left hook.
If Ryan Garcia showed more ability to improvise, to thereby open up his opponent by trying for different punches, just trying for different combinations, perhaps he would have been able to finish his food. But this was a fight where each round was more or less similar to the last, and the amount of punches Ryan is landing on this guy, you're wondering, why can't he put him away?
He's predictable.
And Mario's tough. That's all you can really ever say about Mario, that he's a tough guy and that he works hard.
I get so sick of seeing people praise Mario Barrios' management for the big fights that he lands when him landing those fights don't boil down to his management. The only reason he lands these kinds of fights is because he sucks, is because he's beatable. It's because he's boxing's equivalent of a paperweight.
He's a glorified placeholder with an alphabet title, so of course a lot of guys are going to want to fight him. Three-weight world champion Devin Haney, reacting to the fight, said Ryan is off that good juice, and I happen to agree. That's why I picked him to win.
If Ryan Garcia looked different from the last time we saw him with Rolly Romero, it's likely because he's back on the sauce.
Though now that both he and Devin Haney hold alphabet titles at the same weight, can we expect the rematch between them to happen? And I don't think so, because while there is some money in a rematch, I think the second fight would generate more pay-per-view buys than the first one did due to the controversy of Ryan's failed VADA test. There are actually bigger fights out there for Ryan involving fighters that have more fans than Devin Haney. Don't let the online community fool you. What online support Devin Haney seems to get in the YouTube boxing community or on X, Instagram, these guys don't pay for shit. The ones that claim to like him.
A lot of them don't.
And without paying customers and patronage, what is it really worth boxing Devin Haney when you know he's gonna ask for a lot of money? I mean a lot of money that he's not actually good for. Negotiating with him is not going to be easy, and for what? A guy who can't draw flies to shit? Guy who him and his father are relying on you and your fans, what customers you have and what money you generate to get themselves paid. I'm not a fan of Ryan, but I'm not a fan of Devin either.
I don't give a fuck about his revenge. I don't give a fuck about a rematch.
But I don't give a fuck about Ryan either. I don't. I'm just saying, I'm not convinced that a rematch between them happens in spite of them both being champions at the same weight, because Ryan has other options. Seated ringside was British boxing's equivalent of Benedict Arnold, Conor Benn, after his recent treachery against Eddie Hearn. He said, "Congratulations, champ. See you later this year. Make sure you keep my belt warm. Hashtag Ryan Garcia."
They can fight.
After Devin Haney unseated Brian Gortex for the WBO title, him and his father expressed some interest in fighting Conor Benn. The interest was not mutual. Conor's not interested in Devin. He is interested in Ryan.
Nobody serious about boxing is interested in Devin.
Now, transatlantically, Ryan Garcia versus Conor Benn is a bigger fight than Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney, too. It is.
Even with Conor Benn betraying Eddie Hearn and his public stock being at an all-time low, how is it bigger?
Because Conor Benn now has Zuffa Boxing behind him and all the money that they have, they can pay to play.
Remember that Devin Haney doesn't actually have any representation. He doesn't have a promoter, even though he claims to be one himself.
He's about as much a promoter as I am a Ninja Turtle.
The Haneys don't have any fucking money. There's no real money behind them, lest Turkey El Sheikh decides to use them for another one of his shows, where Turkey, through Sella, the WWE, the UFC, and Paramount, they're all behind Conor in a manner of speaking because they're behind Zuffa, and Zuffa is behind him.
So they can actually formulate an offer to Ryan Garcia, a sizable one, to do a fight between him and Conor that the Haneys could not.
The Haneys are bums.
Fast-talking panhandlers who have to rely on somebody else's fans to make some fucking money. I wouldn't mind it at all if they were completely frozen out of every meaningful fight in the welterweight division.
Fuck them.
Fuck you if you like them.
When my hand heals, I'll be looking for that opportunity for sure. And Devin, he don't want that. He's terrified. He has PTSD. I just want to beat Devin Haney's ass bad.
So the rematch between Devin and Ryan doesn't look likely to happen, though what might is a fight between Ryan and Shakur. Ryan Garcia, after the fight, called out Shakur Stevenson, saying, "You know who I want? Shakur. Let's run that shit. I'm ready. It's my time." Why Ryan Garcia might have a preference wanting to fight Shakur more than he wants to run it back with Devin is because Shakur would be new to the weight. He would be new to the welterweight division, far removed from where he started at 126, not known for his punching power.
That would give Ryan the edge in that department. Ryan, who would be taller, who would be longer, arguably stronger, though not the better boxer by any stretch of the imagination. In spite of what happened in the Devin Haney fight, and I've said this before, I've got Shakur beating Ryan. I've got Shakur outclassing him.
Though not having any stopping power or killer instincts, even in a fight that he is so clearly dominating like what we saw in the Lopez fight, it's a fight that likely goes to the cards. It's a fight that goes the distance where Shakur Stevenson wins wide.
If you've got a hankering for another one of those.
I've long maintained that Shakur's temperament outside of the ring does not match his temperament inside of it. That outside of the ring, he's emotional, he's volatile, but he doesn't fight that way once the bell sounds. He's quite calculated.
Careful.
Cerebral. He won't go in for the kill. He won't try to stop Ryan Garcia, but he will outpoint him. Ryan is too simple a fighter for Shakur Stevenson. He's a good physical specimen. He's tall and he's long and he's strong and he's got some speed. But in terms of X's and O's, Ryan is a simple fighter. He's always been a simple fighter. Would seem the powers that be moved heaven and earth to give Ryan Garcia an opportunity he didn't earn, that he doesn't deserve, and now he sees himself a world champion for the first time, having campaigned at 3 weights, at 135, arguably at 140, now at 147, he's finally got a world title.
And the same thing that makes Mario Barrios an attractive opponent to so many people is the same thing that makes Ryan Garcia an attractive opponent to so many people. The difference is Ryan actually has marquee value. He is worth a lot of money, for better or worse.
But is this the system that people are trying to protect when they have a go at Zuffa boxing and their more insulated infrastructure? This is supposed to be better.
What's better about it?
Ryan Garcia really appeals to. It's not older guys like me and you. It's not our crowd. It's the teens and tweens. It's the Starbucks drinking, cafe wearing liberals.
Free Pakistan! Palestine! Free Paradigm!
Pear-shaped, blue-haired liberal white women with septum rings might like Ryan a lot more than either I or you, and they don't mind it at all that he got an opportunity he didn't deserve, because that's what they all aspire to. They don't want to work hard.
They think the government's supposed to give them everything.
Why do you think that socialism, tantamount to communism, is so popular among these people? That is who Ryan is popular with. So I'm not actually excited to see him fight Shakur Stevenson. I'm just saying that's what might happen. As far as I'm concerned, Shakur is talented, very good, but very boring. And Ryan is an idiot. You can make of that what you will.